Okay, this video is going to go over notes and exercises that we did in class regarding pages 5 and 7 of our chapter 5 or chapter 4 notes. So chapter 4 notes, page 5 are starting there. So last night's homework, you watched a video on the do while loop, and so we're just going to review that just a little bit. And so here's a template of how it works. And so the first question is, now on these, it would be good on any of the stuff that you maybe answer the question first yourself and then see what my answer is. That would be the ideal situation. The purpose of do while loops is to guarantee that the loop is executed at least one time. So as you notice up here, when it comes to the loop, it just says do it. That's all it says, is do it. And so we're not really testing anything until the bottom of the loop or the end of the loop. And then it's when it's tested to see if it goes through a second time. So it's always being tested after it goes through a loop. The unique characteristics of do while loops would be that the while statement is on the same line as the semicolon, or as the curly brace. So that's weird. Okay, so that's a unique characteristic. And then the semicolon is at the end of the while loop or while statement, which is also strange because if you remember page 2 of our notes, we had an example of an error being the semicolon at the end of the while statement, which caused an infinite empty loop. And so but this setup works, however. So then we go to the following terms that apply to do while loops. Do while loops can be a post-test loop, not a pre-test, because their post means after. And so to be tested, and if you remember, this is the loop control variable initialized. This is the loop control variable tested, and this is the loop control variable updated. And so the test happens at the post or after the loop, after the loop's already been gone through. Then it can be a definite loop or an indefinite loop, so it can be used to where the loop will be executed a certain number of times determined by the programmer, or it can be an indefinite loop, like we've just learned about how that it can be controlled by an accumulating variable, like by the value of that, or by user response. So it can be all three of these things. Then you look at the while loop. Is the only difference between this and a do while is that it's a pre-test instead of a post-test. So so if you remember on those, the test is right here on line 3, which is before the loop. So even before it goes through one time, it's got to be tested first. And then the next thing is that the for loop. Now the for loop is a pre-test as well, same as the while loop, and it is only used for definite loops. So it's only used, a for loop is a kind of a special loop for definite loops, for loops that are determined beforehand as to how many times they're going to be executed by the programmer. Programmer decides. Alright, next. So again, on these things, if you can pause the video and do these A, B, and C on this page, that would be ideal, and then you come back and see how we did this. Now, so this is practicing tracing code using a do while loop. So as you can see, we start here, do the loop, and so these are the variables that are declared and initialized. And so y is assigned y times x. So y is 5 and x is 1, so y is assigned 5. So we'll just leave this as 5. The value of y, and then print the value of y, which happens to be 5, as you can see. And the memory location, we're going to call these memory locations right now. And then x is incremented by 1, so now x becomes 2. Okay, this was supposed to be bold and red. Interesting. So then we come down to the ending brace, which has the while statement. And so now here's the test after we've gone through the loop. X is 2, and 2 is less than or equal to 3. So we're going to go back up to do, and then we're going to go y is assigned y times x. 2 times 5 is 10. So x becomes 10. Why is this not working right? I don't get it. I guess I don't understand. Okay, and then print the value of y, which is 10. And then down here, x is incremented to become 3. And then we go test the loop. Now, is 3 less than or equal to 3? Yes, it is. So we go up to do. Y is now assigned y times x. Y is currently 10, and x is currently 3. So that's 30. So y is assigned 30. And then we print the value of y. And then x is incremented by 1. And then now we go to the test, and is 4 less than or equal to 3, which is false. So now we jump out of the loop, but there's nothing else here, so the program is done. And that's how it goes. All right, let's look at B. Oops. So, okay, x is right now 100, and so we go into the loop immediately. X is going to be cut in half, which is this is going to happen a bunch of times. And so first time it's cut in half. Half of 100 is 50, and then we're going to print 5 times x. Well, 5 times 50 is 250. And then, is 50 greater than 0? Yes, so we go back up, and now we're going to cut x in half again. So that's 25, and then we're going to print 5 times 25, which is 125. Then 25 is greater than 0, so we're going to go back up to do, and x is cut in half again. 25 divided by 2 is 12.5, but an int divided by an int has to be an int. And so, as we've said before, you use the calculator, or think like a calculator, and then cut off the decimal. You don't round, you cut off the decimal. And so this is an int. It has to be an int, so it's 12. And then 5 times 12 is, of course, 60. And then 12 is greater than 0. And so we go back up, and now we're going to cut 12 in half. And then we're going to print 5 times x. So 5 times 60, 5 times 6 is 30. And then 6 is greater than 0, so we're going to cut x in half again. And print 5 times, so now we're here, print 5 times x, which is going to be 15. And then x is 3, and that's greater than 0, so we're going to go and cut it in half again. Now 3 divided by 2 in the calculator is going to give you 1.5, but it's got to be an int, so you do the calculator, drop the decimal. And so it's 1, and so then we're going to print now 5 times 1, which is 5. And then 5 is greater than 0, or not, sorry, 1 is greater than 0, And so we go back up to start the loop again. So we're going to cut 1 in half. Now if you do the calculator, you're going to get 0.5. But remember, 5 divided by 2 is an int, or 1 divided by 2 is an int divided by an int. So the answer has to be an int. So we do the calculator, drop the decimal. And so x becomes 0. We're going to print 5 times 0, which is going to give us 0. And then we're going to go and test. And so 0 is greater than 0 is false, so we stop the loop. Alright, let's go on to the next one. X is 1, prod is 1. And so we go into the loop. And so prod times x. So prod is 1, x is 1, and so prod stays at 1. Now we're going to increment x, and that is going to be here. So it becomes 2. Now, so we go to the while statement, and 2 is less than 3. Yes. And so we go back up the loop, and prod is assigned prod times x. Well, that's going to be 2. So prod is now 2. And then we're going to go to x is going to be incremented here. So this becomes 3. And then we go to the while statement. 3 is less than 3 is false. So that is done with the loop, and then we're going to print the value of the variable named prod. Well, prod's value is 2. So we're going to type 2, and that's it. We're done. So there's going to be part 2 where we're going to deal with one more thing that we did here.